Hi, this is Dr. Kerry Johnson. This is our frequent video to try to give you information that you can use to be much more informative for your 3-month phone calls. First, try to make 5 RPCs every single day. These are really important because your clients want to hear from you. When the market's bad, when the economy's bad, the first thing they want to hear is from the people they value their opinion the most. And the last thing you tend to do is call people with things that are not encouraging or not uplifting. You just need to talk to them. Next, when you talk about talking points on these 3-month phone calls, make sure that they're only 3 points. No, any more than 3 becomes very confusing, and less than 3 becomes not very important. So limit your comments to only 3 points. And if you can't find any needs, obviously ask for referrals. 38% of these 3-month phone calls will end up in new opportunities or referrals from you. Now, you're doing a super job on recapping. You're doing a marvelous job on trial closing. Never pitch, never sell. Ask what their concerns are. If you can't find concerns, do a little hurt and rescue. My concern is this. Do you have plans to be able to prevent that from happening? Does that concern you? I have a concern that I was thinking about you about this. Does that bother you? Recap by saying, so if I heard you correctly, trial close by saying, if we could take a look at, would that be helpful for you? And then you're going to be able to make those 3-month phone calls, very conversational, no sales, no pitching. So here's some talking points for the next week. Number 1, we're going to retest the March 19th lows. A lot of reasons for this. Jay Powell, the Federal Reserve Board chairman, said on 60 Minutes this evening and also over the last week that the recovery from the U.S. is not going to be V-shaped. It'll be long-term. We're toying right now with what's called negative interest rates. This is basically when you have to pay the bank to keep your money there. Now, you're thinking this is crazy. How could this happen? Europe has had this for a lot of years, actually. During the last recession in Europe, which is 2008, seems like a lifetime ago now, it was so bad for them that people were taking money out of the bank and putting them in whatever, real estate, anything. When I bought my house in Portugal, I got a 1.5% interest rate, which is a very high interest rate. And they were shocked that I was going to do the loan with them because Europeans typically want to pay for cash because they want to take all the money out of the bank and put them into something that might make some money. 1.5 interest rate, pretty crazy, right? Next, we're going to have a long W recovery, not a V-shaped, a long W. A lot of volatility, a lot of ups and downs. The market right now is based momentum. It's not based on fundamentals. The Federal Reserve Board is propping up the stock market. The market right now is not based on earnings, which is what I call fundamentals. Since 1950, every bear market has retested their lows except for one. The low was March 19th, 36% decrease. We've now recovered a lot, but we're going to retest those lows. Now, this is really important to realize also. It will not be a V-shaped recovery because of these kind of reasons. 25% of hospitality-focused businesses, hotels, restaurants, airlines, etc., are going out of business. In fact, Boeing this last week said that one major airline is going to go bankrupt. Now, that's pretty shocking. The CARES Act, which is the injection of money to pretty much anybody with that filed taxes last year, will expire at the end of July. 70% of the economy, U.S. economy, is consumer-based. These are all reasons why we're not going to have a V-shaped recovery. It's going to be very volatile, a lot of W's. The other reason we're not going to have a very quick recovery is that Europe is in depression. Most of Europe is struggling. They don't have the kind of resources we do. Brazil is near default. The only country that has even come close to recovering from COVID-19 is China, and they're just beginning to come out of it. 12% of the U.S. economy, you wonder why this is important to countries outside the U.S., because 12% of our economy is export-based. That has a big impact on whether or not we recover. Next, 36 million Americans now are out of work. Now, everybody says, well, it's right about 25% of the population. No, it's more like 32% of the population is out of work. And I told you recently, last week, for example, that we have a massive undercount. These are the people who file for unemployment. A lot of people just kind of gave up. They want a disability, they want a retirement, early retirement, they just want to participate. Point number 2, we're going to have very low rates for the next 3 years. 10-year Treasury bonds will be at 0.5 to 1.5%. That's going to prop up the market. Remember, I keep saying that the Federal Reserve Board is propping up the market. It's not based on any earnings and not based on fundamentals. It's based on artificial momentum, news, the Fed propping up the market because there's no other place for money to go. This is particularly important because when rates start to go up, probably within about 2 or 3 years, the market will become even more volatile. And I hope it doesn't crash, but it'll seem like it will because it'll when the Fed takes money away, the money will go into safety, it'll go into Treasury bonds, etc., not the market. This is really important because the Democrats are trying to inject another $3 trillion on top of the $5 trillion that the U.S. is already encumbered by. So this is pretty remarkable. There's going to be a lot of money to unwind to get the economy back going. So we're going to see a recovery that's going to have massive volatility until about probably over the next 12 months and resume in 2023 when the Fed stops propping up the market. Number 3, the vaccine. It's looking more and more now like the COVID-19 vaccine is the only way to save the U.S. economy. The president just announced this last week that Operation Warp Speed is a public-private partnership in which they're just trying to push this as hard as they possibly can. Good reason for this, because I've said before that there's going to be a 3-phased recovery. Number 1, the early adopters, people who are probably not at risk or are just going to jump into restaurants and whatever. The second group are going to see whether or not the first group gets sick. And the third group, who are over 65, are just going to kind of wait till there's a vaccine. Well, the president is really pushing hard for a vaccine. We're going to see in Q3, October through December, a vaccine that's going to be administered to people over 65 or with core morbidity. That's very ambitious. No vaccine has ever been done short of about 3 years. This one will be done within less than 1 year. The rest of the population over 65 will be probably about Q1 or January, February, March of 2021. Now, if there's a second wave of COVID-19, it would be devastating to the economy. Devastating even more than it is right now. There would be a long-term depression of at least 2 to 3 years if we have the second wave. It'll just terrify everybody. So there's a race to invent the vaccine. The country that makes the vaccine first will make hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars because they could sell it to whoever they want to sell it to, which is one of the reasons why China is hacking the biochemical companies, the healthcare companies, to try to see what they're doing with the vaccine for obvious reasons. So those are your 3 talking points. Number 1, there's going to be a retest of the March 19 lows. We're going to have a W-shaped recovery. Number 2, we're going to have very low rates for the next 3 years. GDP right now, debt is 120% to GDP. If the Fed doesn't keep interest rates low, it would cause tremendous turmoil and panic within the U.S. economy. They'll keep it low for a long time. And number 3, the vaccine will be here in sometime in Q4 and then administered widely to the country in probably Q1 of 2021. So those are your talking points for the week. Make lots of phone calls. You're doing a super job. Your recapping and trial closing is wonderful. Don't pitch. Just have a conversation.